Welcome to episode 1 of the Totten Talks podcast, Lifting Legacies and Life Lessons. We are so excited to get started with you all. I'm here with Leo Totten, your host, my co-host, and we really just want to take this episode to share a little bit about why we decided to start a podcast in the first place and what we have in store for you this season. Hi, Leo.
Hello, how are you, Kate?
I'm fantastic as always. How are you?
I'm excited.
Me
This is the
too.
first. Done a lot of podcasts, but this is my first podcast, so I'm pretty excited. This is going to be a really cool deal.
It's a whole new world for us, right? We've really been spending the last few years building a culture online, kicking the social media up into high gear, but this feels like the next level and also a really beautiful way to connect with people in an authentic way that's authentic to you.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty important because I've always considered myself to be, just a down to earth guy, just a regular guy. People say about how awesome I am and how wonderful and all that stuff. And I'm just like, hey, I just do my thing, and we'll keep this down to earth and we'll keep this real subtle and just have a lot of fun with it because been around for a long time, experienced a lot of different things. So I think this is a really cool way of just kind of getting the word out and letting people know what's going on.
Yeah, I love that. I think one of my favorite phrases from you that I've picked up along the way and that we still use a lot online and Totten Training is keep good company, right? And that's one of your mottos and how we often sign off on our email addresses. And it really just goes back to everything you said there. And hopefully that's what this podcast will be all about. So I want to give the listeners a little bit of a peek behind the scenes. What did you think when I first approached you about us getting a podcast going for Totten Training Systems?
First thought, you're
Yeah.
crazy, woman. You 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 are pushing me to technological ends that I would never even imagine because I'm just not exactly Mr. Techno Wizard, and you're bringing me kicking and screaming into the 21st century. so, but the more I thought about it, the more I thought, you know what, it's a pretty cool deal. I enjoy listening and watching other podcasts, so. People have said, well, all the things you've done, you should write a book. Well, I
Yeah.
started writing a book, and that got a little bit cumbersome and time consuming, and it kind of took me away from doing the other things that I've been doing. So
Right.
the idea of the podcast, kind of condensing that book into automatic, you know, automatic things that we normally do. I hear the phone ringing in the background,
Right.
of course.
It's real life, right? You're going to get phone
Yeah,
calls and texts from
exactly.
athletes, and it's all good.
Anyway, so and that's probably going to happen throughout the podcast.
Yeah.
This is a down to earth, real life type thing, and it's not going to be perfect, and but it's going to certainly be hopefully educational and a lot of fun along the way, and all the experiences I've had. Hopefully, people can learn from that because a lot of the things I learned through trial and error over the years, because pretty much taught myself and coached myself, and because of that, it kind of took a long time to figure some things out. Well, if we can do a podcast or if we can do a course and we can do a mentorship that we'll talk about later, if we can do all that and take that trial and error episode out for young coaches and athletes, then that's really going to, I think it's going to be helpful because I didn't have that along the way. I had a lot of really good mentors, but there was a lot of things that I struggled with just because I didn't know any better. So
Yeah.
hopefully I can take that knowledge and kind of smooth out those bumps in the road for people.
I love it. Yeah. I think my why, similarly, but from a different lens for us starting this podcast was you've done so many things, you've been so many places, you bring so much value to everyone you're working with, whether that's your athletes, coaches you're mentoring, random people at conferences I've seen you interact with. And I think in this current day and age where everything's about the shiny thing on the internet, it's important that we keep getting your stories and experiences out there so that doesn't get lost, right? So the name Leo Totten stays relevant and important because you have built an incredible legacy, which you're still actively building to this day. And sometimes it feels challenging to compete with like all the new shiny things on the internet. And yet we know that when you stay consistent, you keep good company, you do right by the people you're supporting, you, the team, the company have outlasted a lot of those really shiny things that have kind of come along and gone by the wayside. So that was my big why for us getting this podcast going, because I wanted to make sure that we could get the power that is Totten Training Systems out to more people in this current online climate.
Well, and that's one of the things I talk about all the time. Anytime I teach a course or speak at a seminar, I always try and point out, especially to the young coaches that are out there, young athletes, is like, you're not going to become an expert by this seminar or this course that we're
Right.
doing, but
Right.
it's another step in the right direction of learning and being more educated in, what you're trying to do. So, but there's what they have to do is they have to realize, even though they're not going to be an expert, it's that next step, and it gives them a better, what I call a better filter system. So
Sure.
when you go on the internet, there's a lot of really good stuff out there, but there's a lot of crap, to
Yeah.
be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
So the more educated you become, and I like to use the word edumacated just to see if people were paying attention.
One of
but
your many Tottenisms.
Exactly, exactly. But the more educated they become, then they have a better filter system when they go on the internet and they'll look at something and go, that doesn't look like it really has the scientific background or the experience background to show that it really works. It's just another shiny thing out there because there's a lot of people who market themselves very well. And I've been
Absolutely.
around for a long time, and I look at the name of the person. I'm going, who is that? you know,
Right.
so
Right.
what is their background? Where have they been? What have they done? So as long as they have a better filter system of what's out there, where they can be able to decide, okay, that's some pretty good information, as opposed to, yeah, I'm not going to follow that. I'm going to follow something else. So
Sure.
that's what we're looking for here to really try to help with that with through the podcast.
Yeah, and I love that because I think even when we go out and teach, we are really clear with people that we don't want them taking what we say at face value either, right? It's about teaching athletes and coaches how to decipher what to pull from it that works for them, how to make empowered choices and educated choices, maybe is the better word in this scenario, for themselves.
Well, and that's one of the things I try to point out too. I said, look, just because Leo Totten says it doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody in every situation. I just say, hey, look, this has worked for us. This is the teaching progressions that we use. These are the methodologies that we use, and we found over the years that they work.
Right.
However, if somebody tries something and it doesn't work for them, and something else works better, then by all means, that's what you go with. But as long as we follow the basic scientific guidelines and just don't make up crap,
Right.
and that's what some people do, and they sell it really well. But and I know sometimes people say, "Oh, Leo, you're an old guy. All the stuff you do is just all old school stuff." Old school works.
Old school work.
It's worked over the years. It's worked it's just worked over the years. And that's one of the things we try to promote is that, hey, stick to the basics. If you want to do some of the fancy stuff and extra stuff, that's fine. But, I've seen so many coaches try to do really advanced stuff with kids and athletes that they're still at the beginner stage.
They don't have the
So
foundation yet.
they don't have the foundation.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's one of the things we try to stress is that we want to make sure that everybody has the correct foundation. Old school works. Use some of the new ideas that work along with that, and
Yep.
I think you'll be very successful. I found that over the years. Really
Yeah, but
works.
you have the evidence. You have the evidence over and over and over again for yourself, for your athletes, for coaches you've mentored. You've collected so much evidence through the years, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in episode 2, where we really unpack like your story arc, your hero's journey, as it were, in the storytelling world of how you got into lifting and how everything came to what it is today. But I want to today a little bit more before we wrap up, and I didn't prep you for this, but I think just as we're chatting here, it'd be really cool to chat a little bit how you and I met and what our story arc was together. because I think it's parallels so many other athletes and coaches that you've helped over your career. Uh, I think anyone else could hop on and share very similar stories, and that's just a testament and evidence to you caring about the people that you're supporting. So we've known each other for, gosh, I think I've lost track at this point. 13, 14 years now we've been working
I
together in
yeah,
different
I something like
ways.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because Totten Training Systems was started in 2012, and we had already been working together as athlete and coach. And I'll share the opening, and then we can kind of talk about it together as it's grown. But I met Leo at an East Coast Gold weightlifting meet in Moorestown, New Jersey, back in the day when we were still hosting meets there. And I had started in CrossFit like a lot of people did, but this was like back in the day, OG CrossFit, like
Uh-huh.
2010 maybe. And I realized very quickly that I wanted to get into weightlifting, but didn't really know about it. So my coach at the time and I decided I would go to a weightlifting meet, and I had no clue what I was doing. And I remember walking in and seeing Leo as the meet director and going up to him and saying, "Hey, can you tell me when I should start warming up? I don't really know what I'm doing." And he goes, and I bet you there are people listening, so drop us a comment if you relate to this story. He goes, "Oh, you don't have a coach? We'll get you a coach for the day. We'll get you someone that can help you out and take care of you." And that was the beginning for us. I worked with one of your East Coast Gold coaches that day. I think I signed up and went to training camp late that following summer. And that's when you and I officially started working together as coach and athlete. And we spent several years like that. And then when you started Totten Training Systems, you kind of started nudging me and saw the
I
coach in
love
me.
I love telling this story. Let me finish. Let me
Oh,
finish
yes,
what you've started, because I love telling this story. It's certainly a story where, as a coach, if someone is a beginner and
yeah,
someone looks like they may not have, you know, they're not the diamond in the rough, so to speak. They're not going to become a national champion or an Olympic champion. All right. So my philosophy has always been, no matter what level they are, when they come to me, no matter what level they are, if they're willing to work, I'll work with them. And I know some top level coaches, they kind of stay away from the beginners. They just want the top level lifters already. And I
right.
get that, and that's fine. But my philosophy has always been, take them where they start and take them as far as you can take them. So
Hmm.
anyway, in your situation, I'll
Yeah.
never forget this. You came up to me at the camp that we did. People who
Yes.
aren't familiar, we did week-long weightlifting camps for 32 years. It's
Yeah.
kind of an unknown thing by a lot, unless people have been around for a while. But there's
Yep.
been a lot of people that have attended those camps, and some great stories from that. But
Yes.
anyway, so you came up to me, and this was at Millersville University.
Yep.
Okay, you came up, and this was your first camp,
First camp.
and I looked at you, and you came up and you said, "I want you. Would you mind working with me? I really want to succeed at this. I want to become. I want to at least make the American Open finals."
Hmm.
And I, I've heard that. I've heard that before. Okay, and I'm
Sure.
sure a lot of coaches have. An
Yeah.
athlete comes up, a beginner. I want to do this. I want to do that, and they don't understand what it takes to get to the level they're talking about. I
Right.
mean, it takes dedication, it takes discipline, all the things that we as coaches know. But the young athlete coming up to us, they don't know all that they need to know, basically.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, when you told me what you wanted to do, at the time you were a little heavier than you wanted to be because you were in a
Oh yeah.
car accident that
Yep.
kept you from training, and you were how heavy were you, if you
When
don't
I
mind my
started
asking?
weightlifting, I don't mind. I openly talk about my weight. I think weightlifting, the sport, in a lot of ways, healed a lot of my body image issues because it wasn't about. It was just about
Exactly.
training for the weight class, and that was it, and my best performance. So when I start my very first competition, I weighed in at 91 kilos, so over 200 pounds at 5'5". When I was and this was in my mid 20s, when I was a competitive sprinter in high school and a little bit in college, but that car accident kind of stopped all of that. I walked around at a lean, muscular, like 150 to 160 as a
Hmm.
sprinter. So we knew already that that was kind of that ideal body type. But over the years, I had put on about 70 pounds.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and the point here is that you started off at 91 kilos, and
yep.
you said your goal was to get down to 69
Yep.
class and
Yep.
qualify for the American Open.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, we'll give this a shot. Hey, if you're willing to work, I'll work right with you. And
Yeah.
sure enough, she
Yeah.
made the 69 class, qualified for the American Open finals, and competed.
And
Now, but that's
nationals.
not the whole story. The whole
No,
story is that if you train anybody, no matter what their level is, if they have the heart and the intensity, you don't know who's going to continue on and do different things.
that's
Well,
it.
as it turned out, you ended up getting, going through all your exercise science stuff and your coaching, and now look what you're doing. I mean, you're my top coach that works with my business. You work with USA Weightlifting.
Yep.
You run, you're pretty much my right hand man with my
Yeah.
Totten Training systems as far as my marketing, and you're the
Yeah.
one that got this podcast together. There's no way I would have done this on my own. So the point being is that starting from zero
Yeah.
and getting to where you are now and what we're doing together, we make a great team. And
Very.
I couldn't be where I am right now without you. I guarantee it.
Right
But
back at you, dude.
but
Oh, we're gonna
listen,
all start crying. The listeners are gonna start crying. We're gonna start crying.
well, but I think that's important. We
It
talk
is.
about relationships. I mean, the numbers are important. Okay,
Yep.
as a weightlifter, you have certain totals you want to make. You have certain lifts you want to make. Bottom line is the relationships, and
Yeah.
the relationships I've had along the way, and you being one of the top ones, and all the other relationships that I've had along the way, that has really made it for me. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's why I do what I do.
I mean,
Weightlifting has been really good to me. That's why I like giving back.
that's it. And that's what it's all about because I can, as I said earlier, I can guarantee you that there are other athletes and coaches that have similar stories to me with you, right? And it's because of how you showed up and you authentically cared. It would have been very easy just hearing what y'all heard for me to get derailed from this. Now, if you don't know me, I'm stubborn as all get out. Ask my partner, he'll tell you.
Yeah.
And at that very same first weightlifting meet, one of the other coaches in the room was observing athletes, and I happened to be standing next to him and made a comment about how there was only one national level caliber athlete in the room. And if that comment could have really derailed me, even though it wasn't said directly to me, it was said about me, right? Saying that I would never amount to anything. And it also fired me up because I'm really dang stubborn. But because of the support from you, because of the mentorship from you, slowly, right? It didn't happen overnight. Over years, I made it to the American Open Finals. I made it to nationals. I competed. I competed in the top 10 at those levels. And as you alluded to, it changed my entire career. I went back for my master's degree. I got my master's in exercise science. I carried that with me in how I show up and take care of my athletes and now mentoring coaches. And that's the point we want this story to make, right? Is that it's about being a good person and authentically caring and showing up in your integrity and helping people win, right? It's both.
Well, I think Phil Sabatini, who is now our president of East Coast Gold and associate head coach, and anybody, excuse me, anybody who knows Phil knows he's quite the quality
Yes,
athlete
it is.
and coach and
And person.
person. So he's
Yep.
got a lot going on. Anyway, so they are now our East Coast Gold main affiliate, main
Yeah.
satellite center. And one
Yep.
of the things, and this is why I really like kind of delegating a lot of the things I've done with East Coast Gold to him and his crew there. One of the things that I use his quote all the time. He says, "We try to do the right thing for the right reasons with the right people."
That's it.
I've I've
Yes, Phil.
I've lived that, and I just
Yes.
think that we carry that on not only with Totten Training, but we carry
Yep.
that on with East Coast Gold, and hopefully we can get that point across here with this podcast.
I love that. Now, real quick, can you just distinguish for listeners who are maybe newer to us the difference between East Coast Gold, the team, and Totten Training Systems, the business?
Oh, okay. And that does get a lot of questions over the
It
years
does.
because
And it's gotten a lot clearer.
there is definitely an overlap there.
Yes.
So
You're the overlap, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think making that clear is pretty important, especially at this point as we begin the podcast.
Yeah.
East Coast Gold is our weightlifting team that I started back in 1992. So it's been around 32 years now. So
Yeah.
and it started with like three lifters. I had
Yep.
one lifter that qualified for nationals, and I was like, I can't afford to go. He
Right.
couldn't afford to go.
Right.
So we developed the team to think, okay, maybe we can get some sponsorships, get a little bit of money going to help us get the meets and stuff. Well, and ironically, by the way, this is Marty Fees. Ironically, he's my physical therapist that he's been working with me with a little issue here in the past
I love
couple of
that.
weeks. So, and we've shared stories. He has
Yeah.
videos from when we first started way
Oh,
back.
I need to
So
get my hands on those.
that's a side story there. But
Yeah.
anyway, we couldn't afford to go to nationals or any meets. That's how it started. And what we found was that there were people out there that just out in the general area, they didn't have a coach. So they
Yeah.
kind of hooked up with me, and we did online stuff. We did communications back and forth, and the team just kind of blossomed. Then we developed satellite centers. So, long story short, we've just the team is our not for profit thing. So it's not a money making thing for me at all. If anything, it takes a lot of my money to keep it
Yeah.
going. But that's the not for profit team that we have with USA
Yes.
Weightlifting. Totten Training, I had been doing coaching courses. As a matter of fact, I was one of the first ones to start
Mhm.
teaching courses. This is back in the late 80s,
Yeah.
okay, 1980s, all right?
Yeah.
Some of you young listeners have no clue what I'm talking about because you
We're bored.
weren't
Yeah.
even born then. But yeah, I helped develop those courses and have been teaching them ever since. Um, and what I found was is that these weightlifting courses that USAW has, and I really like the courses, and I think they're really well done, but they're pretty much designed for developing weightlifting coaches. So I said, well, what's out there to use the Olympic lifts and that type of training for strength coaches? So
Right.
that's when I really started developing my own courses for that. And then I kind of did that on the side as I retired from teaching in 2006 because I taught for 32 years.
Yep.
Then I worked for Works on Barbells as president for 6 years. And all the while I'm teaching these courses, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to start doing my own thing. And that's when I started in 2012
Yep.
developing Totten Training Systems. So this is a for-profit as opposed to not-for-profit. But just getting the word out that, hey, this is a great way of training in the strength and conditioning world. And at the
Yeah.
same time, I'm still training weightlifters as well.
Sure.
So I've kind of gotten away from doing too much individually with athletes, and it's more
Yes.
now about coaching coaches. So that's
Yes.
really what Totten Training is all about.
Yeah. Coaches
So
educate.
there is a definite overlap,
For
but I'm
sure.
heavily involved in both, obviously.
Yep.
But yeah, there does need to be some clarification because people don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thanks for bringing that up right
You're
off
welcome.
the bat.
I've
You're
got the
pretty
good
good.
questions coming all season.
There you go.
Well, this has been great. I think it was important for us to give a little bit of an overview to our listeners of what to expect. Can you just kind of give them a quick, synopsis of what we're kind of planning for season one, the mix of things that we've got coming down the pipeline?
Well, yeah, and I think that's important to point out in this first episode as well, because we're going to cover a lot of stuff
Yeah.
from an educational standpoint, from a telling stupid jokes standpoint. I have so many stories over the years, so many experiences that I'd like to share. Matter of fact, on the first one, the second episode actually, I was talking to you a little while ago about. I have a whole list of things I could just talk about my firsts. In other words, my first lifting meet, my first Olympics. It just goes on and on, and that might even be two episodes. I don't know,
Right.
but
It might need to be a two-parter.
yeah. So not from an educational standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint,
Yeah.
because anytime I teach a weightlifting class, I always try to incorporate some of these stories in to kind of reinforce the things we're trying to get across. And he said, this is an experience I had to kind of back that up. So, and then we'll have some guest speakers. Over
Yep.
the years, I've met some really cool people that are real much, much smarter than I am. I guarantee it. And the type of person that we'll have on here, I think you'll really like, because the type of person that I hang out with, the good quality people, especially the really smart people, Mike Stone, Kyle Pierce, guys like that, really, really smart people. I mean, way up here smart wise. Okay,
Brilliant.
I'm down here, but they talk down to your level. They're just regular people.
Yeah.
They can talk. They can talk about the real highfalutin stuff, but they're just down to earth as well. So we're going to have some really good guest appearances. Overall, I think it should be a really good experience for everybody, and I hope everybody enjoys it and we get some good feedback. Love to keep this thing going for sure.
I'm really excited. I'm excited where we're going. I'm excited to see where it evolves to. Thank you so much for listening to episode 1. If you want to stay in touch with us, the best thing to do is follow us at tottentraining.com or on all of our socials at Totten Training. Lots of great things always coming up, from courses to our mentor program to great throwbacks that Leo shares and posts and talks about, things that you really just can't get anywhere else. I'm excited for a great season. We'll catch you all on episode 2.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun.